welcome to this explainer. Today, we're zooming in on what I like to call the tiny heavy lifters of the English language. We're talking about articles. You know, those little words, a, an, and the, that we literally use hundreds of times a day without even a second thought. But what actually happens when we do stop to think about them? Well, it gets surprisingly complex. So let's dive right in and master these miniature powerhouses alongside a really fascinating concept known as the zero article.
Honestly, why do three tiny words cause so much panic and embarrassment in professional writing? You might be thinking, come on, it's just a or the. How hard can it possibly be? But whether you're a lifelong native speaker or someone working hard to master English as an additional language, these little guys are total grammatical tripwires. Using the wrong one, or maybe using one when you really shouldn't, can instantly flip the meaning of your sentence. It can make a specific, hard-hitting directive sound like just a vague suggestion. I mean, it's the difference between asking your boss for a raise and asking for the raise you were promised. Big difference, right?
If you look at the whole architecture of English grammar, articles sit right there at the foundation, right alongside verb forms and sentence structure. They definitely aren't just decorative filler. They are absolutely crucial pillars of the language. They dictate the specificity of your nouns, and honestly, without them, the entire structure of academic and professional writing starts to get a little wobbly.
Okay, so let's ground ourselves with a really clear definition. At its core, an article is simply a word that tags along with a noun to determine whether that noun is specific or general. Think of it kind of like a spotlight. For example, if I say, after the long tiring day, the cup of tea refreshed the mind, I'm not just talking about any random day or any random cup of tea you might find. That specific the acts as a spotlight, pointing to one particular day and a particular highly anticipated cup of tea. It brings immediate, sharp focus to your subject.
So, here's our game plan for today. 1. The indefinite, a versus n. 2. The definite, using the. 3. Geography and the. And 4. The invisible zero article.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the indefinite a versus an, and the absolute golden rule of sound.
You know, we're often taught to look at the first letter to choose between a and an, but actually, the choice is based entirely on phonetics. It is all about the sound, not the spelling. We use a before consonant sounds and an before vowel sounds. Take unicorn, for example. It starts with the vowel U, sure, but phonetically, it begins with a y sound, a consonant glide, so it takes an a unicorn. It's the exact same thing with a historic event, when that H is strongly pronounced. On the flip side, umbrella uses a short, sharp vowel U sound, so it's an umbrella. And what about an honest mistake? Well, the H there is completely silent, which leaves us starting with an O vowel sound. So the biggest takeaway here, always trust your ears, not your eyes.
So how do we actually use these indefinite articles in context? Well, the baseline rule is that a singular common noun always requires an article. If a baby is playing, she's playing with a doll. Just one, random doll. If you take a trip to the zoo, you might point and say, hey, look, an elephant. You're introducing a single item to the listener for the very first time. But when we shift to plurals, like saying, I saw elephants in a zoo, you don't always need that introductory a or an. And that's simply because a inherently means one.
Moving right along to section 2, the definite, using the, getting specific.
We bring in the when we know the listener is already on the exact same page as us. If I ask you, did you complete the homework, I'm fully assuming you know exactly which agonizing assignment I'm talking about. But the actually has a few other really fascinating jobs. We use it to generalize a whole group of people, like saying, the honest are respected. We also mandatorily use it for things that are completely one of a kind in our universe. The sun, the moon, the equator. And interestingly, we use it for uncountable nouns when we're trying to get specific. Now, water by itself is uncountable, but if we specify it, it suddenly becomes the water in the Pacific Ocean.
Okay, part 3. This one is notoriously tricky. Geography and the. Let's map out these rules.
There is a real divide when it comes to geography. We absolutely do use the for massive, connected bodies of water, like oceans, think the Atlantic, but we skip it entirely for continents. It's just Asia, no the required. We use the for a sweeping chain of mountains, like the Andes, but literally never for a single isolated peak, like Mount Everest. And countries? Oh, this is a big one. We only use the if the country's name is plural, like the Netherlands, or if the name includes words like states, kingdom, or republic, so the United States or the United Kingdom. For singular countries like China or Canada, you drop the article entirely. Oh, and please, don't use the for street names. It's just Broad Street. Definitely not the Broad Street.
And now, Section 4. My personal favorite, the invisible zero article, the ghost of grammar.
This brings us perfectly to the absolute climax of article mastery. Sometimes, the absolute best, most grammatically pristine word to use is nothing at all. It's like a grammar ninja. We skip articles entirely when we're making broad, sweeping generalizations using plural nouns. For instance, dogs are loyal. We aren't talking about specific dogs in our neighborhood, we mean dogs as an entire, broad concept. We also skip articles for general non-count nouns. Water is essential for survival. We don't say the water is essential, just water. And, as a really solid baseline rule, we omit articles before proper nouns, like people's names and languages. You speak French. You definitely don't speak the French.
To really lock this in, listen to the difference between making a huge, general statement and narrowing it down. A general, zero-article statement sounds like, girls like pink, a massive, broad claim about a plural noun. But compare that to a restricted, highly specific group, the girls in my hostel like to play kabaddi. The split second we restrict that group, boom, the definite article reappears. We've moved from the abstract universe of all girls right down to a highly specific known group. That tiny shift from zero article to the completely changes the entire scope of the sentence.
Now, I've got a massive pro tip for you, and this one trips up a lot of learners. We call it institutional purpose omissions. In sentences like, she goes to school every day, or he is in hospital. Notice how there is no the before school or hospital? That is the zero article hard at work. The rule here is that if a person is at an institution for its primary intended purpose, like going to a school to learn or being in a hospital to get medical treatment, we drop the article completely. Think about it. If you just went to a school building to fix the plumbing, you'd say, I went to the school. But if you're there as a student learning math, it's just school. It's such a subtle but brilliant little nuance of English.
To wrap up this explainer, I've got a slightly sneaky, wonderfully layered sentence for you to chew on. The honest are respected, but honesty is the best policy. Notice how it seamlessly dances between the definite, the, and the invisible zero article. Can you spot exactly why the mechanics suddenly shift right in the middle of the sentence? So, the next time you're drafting an email or editing a report, remember the heavy lifters. Sound out your A's and ands, get hyper-specific with your thes, and see if you can spot exactly when that zero article is working its invisible magic. Keep practicing, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.